August 24th, 2023 marked a pivotal moment in the chess world. The Chess World Cup 2023 was drawing to a close, and the spotlight was on two players from different generations. Magnus Carlsen, often regarded as one of the greatest chess players of all time, and Praggnanandhaa Rameshbabu, the young prodigy from India. The tiebreak format was a rigorous test of skill and endurance. It began with two 25-minute games, progressing to shorter time controls if the scores were level. The possibility of an Armageddon chess loomed if the tie persisted, adding to the tension. The game commenced with Pragg choosing the e4 opening move, a hallmark of many great chess games and a testament to his aggressive and confident play style. This move not only controls the center, but also frees the queen and bishop for future development. Pragg's knight sits at f3 and the bishop at c4, Magnus responding with two knights, c6 and f6. Magnus opted for the Sicilian defense, a revered counterattacking system. By choosing this defense, Magnus was not just passively responding to Pragg's move, he was making a bold statement. He intended to challenge the reigning champion right from the beginning, refusing to be subdued. The Sicilian defense is renowned in chess circles for its ability to create asymmetrical positions. This means that the usual balance of power is disrupted, leading to a game where both players have unique opportunities and challenges. Such positions often lead to dynamic play, with both players having chances to seize the initiative, making it a fitting choice for a match of this magnitude. In the evolving landscape of the chessboard, the opening phase sees both Carlsen and Pragg fiercely vying for central dominance. The knights and bishops, vital in these early stages, maneuver strategically across the board, seeking shelter and support from the advancing pawns that weave between them. Pragg, showcasing his strategic acumen, expands his territory on the queen side with a timely pawn advance, signaling his intent to create potential breakthroughs. Interestingly, Carlsen has mentioned in past encounters his affinity for playing with the black pieces, contrary to the conventional wisdom that perceives white as the more aggressive force in the opening. Carlsen often turns that plan on its head. He adopts a more confrontational stance, even when playing black, challenging the traditional narrative. Instead of being on the defensive, he turns the tables, making it clear that he's not just there to respond, but to dictate the rhythm of the game. As the intricate dance of the game unfolds, Carlsen masterfully executed his strategy, asserting his dominance over the crucial central squares. However, Pragg was not to be outdone. He devised countermoves, meticulously targeting Carlsen's central pawn formation, aiming to dismantle the stronghold. The atmosphere was thick with tension, each move echoing the silent battle of wits as both grandmasters strategically maneuver their pieces, seeking superior board positions. In a particularly notable sequence, Carlsen's aggressive pawn push compelled the white bishop to adopt a more reserved position, retreating slightly. This maneuvering presented an enticing opportunity for white, the capture of a central pawn. This action inevitably lured the knights into a skirmish, culminating in a potential exchange on the pivotal e4 square. This tactical decision proved advantageous for white. With the central board now less congested, it paved the way for the queen, rooks, and the lurking bishop to unleash their potential, each piece menacingly targeting Carlsen's queen, rook, and the all-important king. A pivotal moment came when Carlsen boldly pushed his king to g7 after Pragg threatened to drive forward with his queen or knight. This move aimed to open up the defensive position of the king, preventing the queen or king from getting too close, and it also allowed him to safeguard the adjacent squares for his pawns to develop into. Pragg pauses and takes 6 whole minutes of his clock to consider his options, ultimately just moving his king 1 square to h1.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it.
It really highlights the pivotal change at this moment, with Pragg realizing he's in an exposed position. As pieces were exchanged and the endgame approached, Carlsen's experience began to shine. The endgame was triggered by the trade-off between the two queens. Pragg really needed to calculate whether Magnus had enough material left on the board to still pose a significant threat. His pawn positioning across the center had given him active pieces to develop while still remaining protected, and he skillfully maneuvers his rook and knights to exploit weaknesses in Pragg's position. Pragg, however, was not to be outdone. His resilience and fighting spirit were evident as he sought counterplay, aiming to create chances against Carlsen's king. But Carlsen's defensive skills, honed over years of playing at the highest level, were up to the task. Here, Pragg finds himself with around 40 seconds left on his clock. Magnus a cool 2.5 minutes. The game reaches its climax when Carlsen, showcasing his endgame prowess, he begins to push his knight towards Prag's king, supported by a threatening line drawn across the board by his rook. As the knight skips towards the king, Pragg tries to position defensively. As they continue into the endgame, Prague's pawns on the queen's side find themselves becoming trapped. Prague's pieces were tied down, and the threat of a pawn breaking through and promoting wasn't a problem Pragg wanted to have to think about. He sacrificed a pawn of his own to try and open up the queen's side, only to find more of his pieces drawn into the defense of that side of the board. Magnus, now having tied up Pragg, continues his advance with now 2 knights on the white king. As the endgame progressed, moving towards a decision, Carlsen began to tighten the noose around Prague's king, employing a series of masterful maneuvers. With the move Rook c3, Carlsen exploited the vulnerabilities of Prague's knight, forcing it into a precarious position. The knight, under duress, had to relocate to a5. However, with most of Prague's pieces still isolated on the queen's side of the board, Carlsen seized the opportunity to advance his knight again to g5. This move intensified the pressure on Pragg, especially as Carlsen's knights began their menacing march towards the already besieged king. In a desperate bid to shield his king and guard the vulnerable back rank, Pragg felt compelled to play rook to d1, though the rationale behind this move remained unknown, likely driven by the shrinking time. As the game continued, Carlsen's relentless assault bore fruit. After a series of checks and strategic moves, Prague's king found itself trapped on the back rank, with threats looming from all directions. The impending threat of rook a1 delivering checkmate became more and more of a reality. With the clock ticking down and time becoming an increasingly critical factor for Pragg, he made a last-ditch effort to stave off checkmate by capturing a pawn with check. However, as the seconds dwindled to 0, the grim reality dawned on him. He was in an irreversible position. His only option was to block the imminent checkmate, even if it meant sacrificing his bishop. But Pragg chose not to make this final move, instead conceding defeat. In a stunning turn of events, Magnus Carlsen emerged victorious, even while playing with the black pieces. In a riveting finale to the World Cup, Magnus Carlsen clinched his first title, further solidifying his legacy in the history books of chess. While this victory is an even more evidence of Carlsen's unparalleled skills currently in the world of chess, Pragg's exceptional performance throughout the tournament hints at a future world champion in the making. Despite the initial stalemates, their final face-off was nothing short of electrifying. Both players, with their strategic brilliance and tenacity, ensured that spectators were treated to a chess masterclass. This match will undoubtedly be remembered not just